my name is Joshua Mootoo and welcome to Pixel Make. In today's video I'm going to be showing you guys how to create our move mechanic. Today's video is going to be the fluffy difficulty, so it won't be that hard to do. Before we start, the version of Unity we're going to be using is Unity version 2017.2. The asset pack we're going to be using in today's video is our very own spaceship pack. You can also download our other asset packs, which we'll be using later on in the series. Links for those will be in the description below. So to start, what I'm going to do is create an empty game object, and I'm going to call it ship, and then I'm going to add all of the ship parts to that empty game object. You may notice that some of the parts are missing, one of the twin chassis and one of the guns. So I'm going to duplicate both of those and mirror them to the other side of the ship by setting the X value on the scale to -1. I'm also going to rename these objects so we know which one they are. So all the ship parts have a mesh collider. To create a mesh collider, you go to Add Components, Physics and Mesh Collider. A mesh collider is a collider which takes the shape of your mesh and set their colliders to become convex, which sets the collider to become a basic outline of the mesh. So some of these objects are covering up collider of another object, so what I'm going to do is remove all of the irrelevant colliders. So I'm going to remove the cockpit colliders, the twin chassis colliders, and the booster and booster plug colliders. So now that we set up our colliders, I'm going to select the ship and add a rigid body. You can do this by going to Add Component, Physics and Rigid Body. So because we don't want to move the ship up and down, what I'm going to do is go into the rigid body controls, go to constraints, and I'm going to freeze the Y position. I'm also going to turn off the gravity. So now we've got our ship set up, what I'm going to do is go to the assets folder and create a prefabs folder. You can do this by right clicking, going to create and folder. So now what I'm going to do is select the ship and drag it into our prefabs folder. So all we need to do now is create our ship's script. So in the assets folder, I'm going to create a scripts folder, and inside that scripts folder I'm going to create a C# script and call it ship_controller. You can create a C# script by right clicking, going to create and C# script. Before we go into the script editor, what I'm going to do is attach our script onto our ship. You can do this by dragging it onto our ship object in the hierarchy, or selecting the ship and dragging the script into the inspector. So I'm going to open that up. I'm going to get rid of all this. So the first thing we're going to do is create our Rigidbody Parameter. So I'm going to type Rigidbody and I'm going to call this RB. We also need a movement speed. So I'm going to create a public float and call it move speed. In our start function, we're going to link our rigid body to our ship. So to do that, we do RB is equal to transform.getComponent rigid body. Then we do brackets and a semicolon. In our update function, we're going to be creating our input controls. So I'm going to create a float and call it move LR for left and right. And this is going to be equal to input.getAxis, and the axis we're going to be using for our left and right controls is horizontal. In the brackets, in some quotations, I'm going to type horizontal. We're going to do the same thing for the vertical controls. So I'm going to call this one move FB for forward and backwards, and the axis we're going to be using is our vertical axis. So we've got our input controls. We now need to link those to the relevant axis. So I'm going to create a vector 3 and call it movement, and that's going to be equal to new vector 3, and in brackets our x-axis is going to be move LR, our y-axis is going to be 0, and our z-axis is going to be move FB. So all we've got to do now is add our velocity to our rigid body. So to do that, you do RB.velocity, and that's going to be equal to movement times move speed, and that's pretty much it. So if we save our script, go back to Unity. So before we test our game, we need to set our movement speed. So I'm going to set that to about 10. And before we test our script, I'm going to change the camera so we can see the ship better. So I'm going to select the main camera and change its Z axis to -25. I'm going to set the Y position to 50 and the X rotation to about 60. So if we test our game, we now can move in all 4 directions as well as the diagonal directions. Before we finish up today's video, I'm going to add a small little line of code to tilt the ship when we move left and right. So if we go into our script, I'm going to create a public float and call it tilt angle. And in the update function, I'm going to do rb.rotation, and that's going to be equal to quaternion.euler, and in brackets I'm going to do vector3.forward, which accesses the Z axis, and then I'm going to times that by our tilt angle, and then times that by our move LR. So if we go back to Unity, before we test the game, we have to set our tilt angle, so I'm going to set that to about 10, and if we playtest our game, the ship now rotates when we move left and right, but it's in the wrong direction. So if we go back to our script, and instead of it being times tilt angle, I'm going to set it to be times minus tilt angle. And that's pretty much it. So if we save our script, go back to Unity, playtest our game, our ship now rotates in the right direction when we move left and right. Before the video ends, I'd just like to give a special thanks to the artist behind our asset packs, Julian. You can find him on Instagram at woo.ju.digital. So that's all we've got for today's video. Tune back here next Thursday when we will be creating our ship's shoot mechanic. If you found this video helpful, don't forget to like and subscribe for more videos on Unity 3D. And also don't forget to hit that notification bell to get updates on when we release a video. For updates on our asset packs and series, follow us on Facebook and Twitter. If you want a behind the scenes look into what we do, you can follow us on Instagram. My name is Joshua Mootoo, and thanks for watching.